Chapter 5. Last night at the dinner table I told a lie. Easier than the last one, I said when Dad asked how the spelling test had gone today at school. He caught me off guard. I was so busy thinking about hotels and Professor Hanawati, I'd forgotten the day that I should have had. Go on then, tell me, what was the hardest word in the test? Dad asked. I said the first thing that came into my head. Reincarnation. Did you get full marks? No. Which words did you get wrong? Because they're the ones you ought to be practicing, you know. It was typical Dad, wanting me to be cleverer, faster, better, and I did try, but tonight it was exhausting. I got up from the table and started clearing the dishes. Lillian, he said sharply, I'm talking to you. Oh, leave her be. She's worried about her granddad, Mum chided. I was, in ways they couldn't imagine. Well, she'd better not be slipping behind. I'll be on to her teachers if she is. Dad shook out the paper. Once he'd disappeared behind it, Mum leaned towards me, whispering, I'm proud of you, Lil. You've got your granddad's spirits, far more than I ever did. There's more to the world than spelling tests, he'd say, and he's right. Dear Mum. She was trying to be kind, but it felt like a nudge in the ribs reminding me of my promise to Grandad. I smiled stiffly. I couldn't tell her about the jar or the curse, could I? I wasn't even meant to have gone to the hospital in the first place. Times like this, I wondered what it would be like to have someone my age to talk to share private secret stuff that wasn't for grown-up ears. Like Tulip did, I bet, with her two brothers, the lucky devil. After supper was cleared and a pot of tea made, Mum and Dad settled by the stove. Every evening was the same. We'd sit quietly, rarely speaking, though often I'd glance up and notice how sad they looked. Dad, I supposed, might be thinking about the war. As for Mum, I didn't know. Sometimes she'd have tears in her eyes. Other times she'd rest her hand on her stomach and sigh. Tonight, though, I couldn't sit quietly, not with Professor Hanawati's letter at Grandad's, just waiting to be read. Has Nefertiti been fed yet? I asked. I'll go if you like. I knew full well how hard it was to coax my parents out of their chairs once they settled down, and it was just the sort of little job that they'd count on me to do. Good girl, Mum said. Don't be long. A short time later, I was heading down Grandad's side alley. This time I'd brought a torch, but still felt weary as I turned the corner. On the doorstep were 2 bottles of milk and 1 of cream, and Nefertiti crouched between them. The second she saw me, she stood up purring. Glad to see you're happier tonight, miss, I said, crouching down to scratch her chin. She was probably hungry, I supposed. But when the door unlocked easily enough, I began to wonder if something was already shifting. Now I knew about the curse and what I'd had to do to break it. Maybe it was a sign I was on the right track. It felt odd to go inside with no Grandad there to greet me. The hallway was so familiar, the crooked lampshade he'd never bothered to straighten, the coat stand, the stairs, the passageway leading to the shop. It made me come over all upset. Though being in the shop itself felt better, a comfort even. The room was full of Grandad. It was like he was there with me. The shelves on every wall were crammed with books, plates, carvings, more boxes. Even the alarming bits, the strange face masks, the stuffed animals with glass bead eyes, were all reasons why I loved coming to visit. In the bay window was Grandad's desk, messy as ever. I flicked through coal bills, newspaper clippings, a fair few of which I noticed were to do with Egypt, and more specifically Mr. Carter. Moving a heap of notebooks aside, I found a half-eaten corned beef sandwich. A quick sniff confirmed it had been there for some time, longer than Grandad had been sick. He was like me where food was concerned. It'd take something really shocking to put him off what he was eating. What looked to be Dr. Hanawat's letter was lying underneath the sandwich. It wasn't a short one either, but a good 5 or 6 pages long and covered in stale breadcrumbs. The paper was tissue thin and a lovely, unusual blue colour. I scanned it for a signature, which, oddly, was at the bottom of the very first page. Like most people, it was a squiggle, but I was able to recognise the H at the start of the name and the TI at the end. To know that this was what I was looking for. I sat down in the nearest chair. It felt strange about being about to read a dead man's letter. A bit eerie, a bit sad, but I was intrigued to hear what he had to say. Dear Ezra, it began, you will know how hard it is for me to admit to being wrong, but I must tell you, your instincts regarding the Egyptian canopic jar were right all along. It does, I fear, carry a terrible curse. We should have left it in Egypt where it belongs. The death of a young boy just days after he discovered it in that queer little rock-faced tomb was no accident. Nor should we have argued and fought over the jar. We were good chums, Ezra, but we let the jar breed bad feeling between us. It poisoned our friendship, I'm sad to say. Many years ago you told me never to darken your door again, and I respected your wish. Now I find I must communicate with you. I have important, terrible news. Neither of us knew there was anything inside the jar, did we? Yet recently I've discovered it holds a secret. Let me explain. For years the jar stayed packed away in my attic, all but forgotten. Last month something changed. For some unknown reason, the jar began to play on my mind, and when I retrieved it from the attic, I heard a rattling sound, indicating an object was inside. It struck me as strange that neither you nor I heard such a sound when we brought the jar home all that time ago in such unhappy circumstances. On removing the lid, which took considerable effort, I found a papyrus scroll, rolled up tightly, folded and tied with a leather thong. There was also something stuffed into the base of the jar, a scrap of old linen probably, that I couldn't dislodge. It was the scroll that captivated my interest, and so I set about trying to translate it. The writing was hard to decipher. It wasn't the hieroglyphics I would have expected to see on an important document, but the informal demonic Egyptian of a personal account. I spent hours, days at my desk, poring over this discovery. As finds go, it was almost as exciting as our first sighting of the jar itself. Remember that, Ezra? How we swooned when we saw it at the market stall? We could not believe Mr. Carter had dismissed it as an insignificant piece. How stupid he would feel now if he could read this translation. When you see whose name appears at the very start of the account, you will understand my elation. Yet I have to warn you, my excitement was short-lived. On commencing the translation, I was overcome with a terrible feeling of dread. I can't describe it more eloquently than that. These past couple of weeks, I've suffered nightmares, headaches, fevers. The doctors say it's nervous exhaustion, but I know it is something far more sinister, Ezra. Something linked to the jar. Of course no one believes me. My own dear wife looks at me across the dinner table each night as if I were insane. I assure you, I am not. The jar is back in its box. I cannot bear to look at it or even have it in my study with me anymore. Every day I live in fear of some nameless terror. The curse is upon me. Much more of this, and I will have to rid myself of the jar for my safety and well-being. Perhaps I might return it to you, who always understood its power better than me. Meanwhile, I'll send you what of the scroll I have translated so far. There is more to come, but my progress is proving slower with what remains. You will be interested to read it, I know, and can, I hope, be of help. Your old friend, Salim Hanawati. I sat with my head in my hands. The letter was a lot to digest. How uncanny that Professor Hanawati had guessed something awful was going to happen to him. It made me more scared for Grandad too, because the letters confirmed that the curse really did exist. So why, after all these years, had it started up again? And what was wrapped in linen in the bottom of the jar? There was no mention of the hotel Grandad spoke about either. The remaining sheets of paper in my hand were the translation, I guessed. Grandad was right. The writing was tiny and cramped, so much so I had to move closer to the lamp to read it properly. Thebes, Ancient Egypt, March 1323 BC. I, Lysandra, have been trusted to scribe the final days of our King Tutankhamun. Be warned, this is not the official account. Mine is about the boy who didn't want to be pharaoh, who was at his happiest pelting my brother with pomegranates. I stopped, read the first lines again. This was about Tutankhamun, the Tutankhamun who Howard Carter was so desperate to find, whose name was in the news almost every day now. Just in case I got it wrong, I held the paper directly underneath the light. No, the name was there all right, though I couldn't believe what I was reading. There's a saying amongst our people, let your face shine, because no one wants to live an unhappy life here on earth and then be stuck with it forever in the afterlife. So when I see Kiki limping towards our house with a face like an old goat's, I sense trouble is on the way. Shall I call Maya? I ask him. Maya is my older brother and Kiki's dearest friend. Only a short stretch of courtyard separates our house from the steps to the royal palace where Kiki lives. That's not his proper name. Maya made it up when he was little. He's been Kiki to our family ever since. My brother is taller than any of us nowadays. He has long legs as thin as a stalk's, but is strong and healthy and happy. All the things Kiki isn't. But Kiki is also King Tutankhamun of Egypt. Often I think he hates his role. It weighs him down, bores him. He'd rather idle his days away with Maya, climbing trees, hunting rodents. Neither has yet seen 17 summers. They are still young and prone to silliness. Our mother pretends not to see it, but I know she doesn't approve. She sews and tucks, which will be her lot for eternity if she's not careful. Kiki leans on his walking stick, a little out of breath. Call him in a moment, Lysandra, he replies. First, I need to talk to you. This takes me by surprise. When people visit me, they come to share their dreams. My grandfather was the first in our family with a gift for dream reading. Now the honour has passed to me. A person's dreams tell you their hopes and fears, the road they will follow into the afterlife. The skill is to listen, to hold each part of what they say in your hands. A dream is like a melon, I tell people. It's not until you cut open the skin that you find the sweet truth inside. As I'm only young, 4 summers behind my brother, I'm still learning the skill. I'm quieter than him too. A watcher, my mother calls me. She says it's why the gift came to me. Today, Kiki looks pale. I hope we're not in for another bout of illness. The fever leaves him weaker every time, and I know I'm not alone in noticing it. There are those at the palace who watch Kiki every limp, every sweat, every meal left untouched. No one watches more than his godfather, A, whom Kiki leans on like a son to a wise father. He does little without A's approval, and in my view, spends far too much time seeking it. I don't trust A. He has the eyes of a hungry wolf watching a weakening lamb. Come inside, I say to Kiki. There's no sun, and the wind off the river is too brisk for sitting outside. So Kiki follows me into where the stove is hot because my mother is baking. She sees us coming, bows and scuttles off, tucks the basket of already baked bread under her arm. Please sit, I say, gesturing to the cushion on the floor. Kiki shakes his head. He's glancing nervously towards the doorway, expecting Maya to appear. I don't sit either. Bad dreams? Terrible dreams, he hisses. For the last few nights it's been the same. I'm chasing someone and though I run and run, I can't reach them. There's a fresh insect bite on his left cheek. He should have a net covering his bed. I wonder why his servant, whose job it is to tend to these things, isn't being more careful. The fevers that come with such a bite are dangerous. So too are the coughs that plague him every winter. Are you sick? I ask, because this sounds like a fever dream. I hear plenty of them and they usually mean very little. No, Lysandra, for once I'm not. I'm more interested now. And how does it end, this dream of yours? I reach a dead end, a wall, a locked door, a ravine. It changes every time. He shivers slightly. Behind me I hear animals growling. Scorpions run across my feet. I mull over what he's told me, a coldness in my veins. I need to hear more of this dream. The person you're chasing, do you see them? I ask. I don't get a good look. Oh, he stops startled as Maya strides into the room. My brother, wrapped in a blanket against the chill, looks more bony-limbed than ever. Not trying to charm my sister, are you? He asks, giving Kiki a playful nudge. He's been ridiculous. Kiki has a wife, Queen Ankhensamun, chosen for him by the men of his inner circle. She's very beautiful, with amber eyes and trailing black hair, though she's almost as old as our mother, which people say is why her babies don't tend to live. Go and jump in the river, I tell Maya, scowling. My brother grins. That's an idea. Coming, Kiki? Once they've gone to get up to whatever mischief takes their fancy, I let out the long, worried breath I've been holding in. This dream of Kiki's troubles me. The sun stays hidden for days on end. Everything is cold. The ground we walk on, the water we breathe in, the linen we wear. Kiki's father was a wayward pharaoh who had favourites among the gods. It brought chaos to our country, and people were always saying the good Amun is still offended, which is why the sun refuses to shine. I've never known a winter so miserable or dark, Mother says. She keeps our oil lamps lit all day so she can see well enough to sew. I'm struggling to concentrate on my scribing work. All morning I make mistakes on the papyrus. Mother scolds me. Whatever's the matter, Lysandra? Come, sit closer to the light. But my mind keeps wandering back to Kiki's dream. A dead end means something, or someone is blocking his journey through this life and on to the next. It's a bad omen. So too are those scorpions which conjure up all things poisonous. I can't explain to Mother that the darkness isn't in the room, but in my head. We're saved by Maya, who rushes in from outside, bringing the cold air with him. I have news, he says. The king's decided to hold a feast day for Amun tomorrow to win back his favour. A has decided it, you mean, I mutter. You despite my mood, I'm glad. I've missed the sun. What can we do to help? Mother asks, ever practical. Your flatbread, Mother. Kiki's requesting it. Maya turns to me. You can help Roti with the horses. There's going to be a chariot racing. For once, Kiki's dear godfather is letting him have his way. Chariot racing is one of Kiki's favourite sports. It's also dangerous, noisy, smelly, and both thrilling and terrifying to watch. He's not taking part, is he? I ask. The thought makes me anxious. Maya laughs. Don't look so worried. It's a feast, not a funeral. I pray my joyful brother is right.